So you've decided to take a leisurely cruise to beat the winter blues. Just hope you stay well, because what you don't know about health care on board a ship and who's responsible for it could make you sick, literally. Here's Deborah Roberts.
A relaxing cruise, the ultimate getaway. Who hasn't dreamed of one? Chris Elliott writes for National Geographic Traveler.
When people think of a cruise, they think all-inclusive floating vacation, sun, surf, sand, fun, maybe a little romance. That's what they want. I think the Love Boat really kind of started everything.
The Love Boat, with its schmoozy crew, including good old Doc Bricker, put cruising on the map. Nearly 10 million Americans will set sail this year. And it could be good for your health if you don't need medical care on board. Is the doctor a part of the crew?
The doctor is part of the crew, but the cruise lines claim no responsibility for the doctor's actions.
Sounds bizarre, but it's true, says Miami Attorney Charles Lipcon, who offers warnings about the arcane, often dangerous world aboard ship in his new book, Unsafe on the High Seas.
They've hired a doctor who they claim is competent. And then if the doctor doesn't take proper care of that person, the cruise lines disavow any responsibility whatsoever.
Just ask Mike and Janice Sullivan, whose Royal Caribbean cruise ended in disaster after they say Janice slipped on liquid near the buffet and was knocked unconscious.
Oh boy, you know, I didn't know if she was dead or what. And
he says it took 30 minutes to get help and an hour before Janice saw the doctor.
I remember them putting ice on my head, and I just remember it just hurting really bad.
They didn't seem to be overly concerned. They didn't say, get off ship, get an x-ray or anything. So I trusted that they would recognize a problem if it was serious.
She spent the rest of the trip in bed, and a few days after they got home, Janice had the scare of her life.
I was paralyzed on my left side.
Wow. What happened, Mike?
When we got to the hospital, the doctor there had the CAT scan and found out there was a blood clot in her skull the size of my hand, and he said, we have to schedule emergency surgery.
So she almost died?
Oh, yeah. I was angry. I mean, when she fell, she had broken a blood vessel, according to the doctor, and that it had been bleeding for 10 days.
And worse, the Sullivans couldn't believe their discovery that the cruise line is not responsible for the medical staff.
We didn't learn that until much later when we were trying to hold the cruise line responsible for her injuries. And then we found out that we were told by the cruise line that the doctors are independent contractors.
That's right, independent contractors. It's all in the fine print. But you can easily miss it on tickets, websites, brochures, including Disney cruises owned by our parent company. Even seasoned travelers like the Sullivans didn't notice until it was too late.
I was very angry because any profession that you're in, you have to be accountable to someone.
And this is her swinging herself.
Iris Cruz and her family are just as outraged after her grandmother's dream cruise ended in tragedy.
Someone that I had just said bye to, someone that was full of life, so healthy.
70-year-old Caridad Cruz fractured a bone in her arm while on board.
My grandfather would tell me, she's not acting like herself. Something's wrong.
Is this in the infirmary? Despite her grandfather's frantic phone calls from the ship, Iris says the medical staff played it down.
They would talk to me so calm. Oh, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. For a moment there, you kind of relax and you say, okay, you know, these are nurses, these are doctors talking to you.
After she had a second fall, the ship's doctor recommended an air evacuation. But before that could happen, Caridad Cruz died on board. An autopsy blamed an embolism due to the fracture. Charles Lipcon is the family's attorney. Is it really fair to assume that this could have turned out differently?
If her grandmother had gotten off the ship in Mexico and flown home with travel insurance, it's a good chance she'd be alive today.
The carrier, which also happened to be Royal Caribbean Cruises, disputes the allegations in these cases and defends the actions of the onboard doctors. But remember, they're not legally responsible anyway. And, says Lipcon, doctors are often transient foreign nationals who are soon on to the next job.
They tell us, well, go ahead and sue the doctor. Well, sure, find the doctor. You know, we've tried to do that. You can't find them to sue them.
Yet Iris's family and the Sullivans are pressing ahead with lawsuits, determined to find justice.
I mean, we're captive aboard ship. If we can't depend on medical personnel there, who can we depend on? Somebody's got to be responsible. Somebody's got to be accountable.
When we return,